Imagine waking up to a world where yesterday's headline tells you that the Eiffel Tower has been turned into a giant billboard, only to discover that no one ever built it. What if I told you that every one of those stories was engineered to look real, crafted by people who know exactly how our minds work and how to pull the strings that make us share, believe, and act? That feeling of being tricked, of having your reality rewritten in an instant, is the power of disinformation. Disinformation, by definition, is intentional false information designed to manipulate opinions or actions. It isn't a mistake or a harmless rumor. It's a deliberate act, a calculated move meant to bend perception. In recent surveys, more than half of adults report having encountered fake news online, and the ripple effects have already reshaped elections, public health responses, and even the stock market. In the next 10 minutes, we'll dissect the psychology that makes us vulnerable, explore the tools creators use, walk through a real-world case study, and arm you with practical defenses.
If you've ever wondered how a fabricated story spreads like wildfire, give this video a quick like. It tells me we're on the same quest.
Let's start with the psychology behind belief. Our brains are wired with shortcuts that help us make sense of a flood of information, but those shortcuts also create blind spots. Confirmation bias, for example, leads us to favor information that aligns with our existing views while dismissing anything that challenges them. The availability heuristic makes the most recent or vivid stories feel more true simply because they're easier to recall. And the backfire effect can cause us to cling even tighter to a false belief when presented with corrective facts, as if the mind is defending its own narrative. Emotions are the fuel that ignites sharing. Fear spikes our alert system, making us more likely to pass along a warning, real or imagined. Anger sharpens focus, turning a scandal into a rallying cry that spreads across feeds. Awe, the sense of something astonishing or extraordinary, compels us to broadcast the experience to others, hoping they'll share in the wonder. When a story triggers any of these feelings, the rational part of the brain takes a back seat, and the impulse to hit share becomes almost reflexive. Social identity adds another layer. Humans are tribal by nature, seeking belonging within groups that reflect their values, politics, or culture. When a piece of information appears to support the in-group's perspective, it is not just accepted, it is celebrated as a badge of identity. Conversely, contradictory narratives are dismissed as attacks from the out-group, reinforcing division and making the false story more resilient. Now that we understand why our minds are primed for disinformation, let's peek behind the curtain at the toolkit creators use. The first weapon is the fabricated headline. Concise, sensational, and loaded with emotional triggers. Visuals play a crucial role. A striking image can convince the brain that the story is credible even before any words are read. Deepfake technology takes this a step further, swapping faces and voices in videos so convincingly that even seasoned journalists can be fooled. Bots and coordinated networks amplify the reach, flooding platforms with likes, comments, and shares that create an illusion of consensus. Finally, the timing of release is carefully chosen to coincide with real-world events, riding the wave of public attention like a surfer catching the perfect swell. All of these elements combine to form a self-reinforcing loop, a sensational claim, an eye-catching visual, a flood of engagement that signals popularity, and a rapid spread that outpaces fact-checking. The result is a fabricated reality that feels as solid as any news article, and many people accept it without a second glance. As we move forward, remember that you are not powerless. By recognizing the bias, the emotion, and the identity cues that pull you in, you can pause, question, and verify before you share. What do you think about the ways we're being nudged toward false narratives? Let me know in the comments. I really want to hear your perspective. Imagine a story that started as a harmless meme in a private chat, then exploded across the internet, reshaping public perception in a matter of hours. That was the trajectory of the infamous Blue Wave video that claimed a prominent politician had confessed to a secret pact with an overseas power. The clip was grainy, the voice slightly distorted, yet it spread like wildfire, amassing millions of views before any newsroom could intervene. Within a single day, the politician's approval rating dipped,
Protests erupted, and foreign diplomats issued statements of concern.
By the time the original source was traced to a network of automated accounts and a single creator using deepfake software, the damage had already been done. This is not a rare anecdote. It is a pattern that repeats whenever the right ingredients: sensational claim, convincing visual, rapid amplification, and timely release come together. The anatomy of that episode reveals how each component of the disinformation toolkit works in concert.
The headline, crafted to trigger outrage, read, "Secret Confession, Leader Admits Betrayal," a phrase that tapped directly into existing fears about foreign influence.
The accompanying thumbnail showed a close-up of the politician's face, eyes narrowed, a visual cue that our brains interpret as seriousness. Behind the scenes, a swarm of bots flooded the platform with likes and comments that praised the revelation, creating the illusion of consensus. The video was dropped just as a major international summit was opening, ensuring that journalists and citizens alike were already scanning the news cycle for breaking developments. All these factors combined to push the story past the usual filters of skepticism.
What makes this especially insidious is the way our brains process information under pressure.
When we encounter a piece of content that aligns with our pre-existing beliefs, the brain's reward centers light up, reinforcing the desire to share. The more we see others reacting positively, the stronger the signal that the information is trustworthy. In the case of the Blue Wave video, supporters of the opposition group rallied around the clip, while detractors dismissed it as a hoax, each side reinforcing its own narrative. This polarization creates a self-sustaining loop where the false story becomes a rallying point, cementing its place in the collective memory even after debunking. So, how can we break that loop?
The first step is to cultivate a habit of pausing before we click share.
When a headline triggers a strong emotional response, whether it's anger, fear, or awe, recognize that this reaction is exactly what disinformation designers count on. Ask yourself, does the story feel too good or too scandalous to be true? A quick mental check can buy you the time needed to verify. Verification itself can follow a simple three-step routine. First, look for the original source. Reputable outlets usually provide a clear byline, a date, and references to primary documents.
If the story appears on an obscure website with a generic domain name, treat it with suspicion.
Second, cross-reference the claim with multiple independent sources. If only one outlet is reporting a sensational event, that is a red flag. Third, examine the visual elements. Reverse image searches can reveal whether a photograph has been repurposed from an unrelated context, while tools that analyze video frames can detect signs of manipulation such as inconsistent lighting or unnatural facial movements. Many platforms now flag potentially altered media, but remember that the absence of a warning does not guarantee authenticity. Beyond individual habits, collective defenses can raise the cost of spreading false narratives. Communities that encourage fact-checking, such as online forums where members politely challenge dubious claims, create social pressure against reckless sharing. Educational initiatives that teach media literacy from a young age empower the next generation to navigate the information landscape with a critical eye. Even simple actions like adding a note to a shared post that says, "I'm not sure about this, we'll check later," signal to friends that skepticism is acceptable and even encouraged. It is also worth noting that not all disinformation is created with malicious intent. Some actors experiment with fabricated stories as a form of entertainment, not anticipating the ripple effects.
Others may unintentionally amplify misinformation simply by passing along something they believe to be true.
Understanding this spectrum helps us avoid demonizing every participant and instead focus on building resilient systems that can absorb and correct errors before they spiral. Now, let's bring this back to your everyday experience. Think about the last time you saw a headline that made you pause. Did you take a moment to verify, or did you instinctively scroll past? What tools do you currently use to check authenticity?
Share your thoughts in the comments. Hearing about the strategies you already employ can spark new ideas for everyone watching.
As we near the end of our journey through the mechanics of fake realities, remember that the power to shape the information ecosystem lies in each of us. By recognizing the psychological hooks, dissecting the technical tricks, and applying a disciplined verification process, we can collectively shrink the space where disinformation thrives. The goal isn't to become paranoid, but rather to become a more discerning participant in the digital conversation. If this exploration has opened your eyes to the hidden architecture behind the stories that flood our feeds, consider giving this video a like.
Your feedback tells the algorithm that thoughtful content matters, and it also lets me know we're on the same wavelength.
And if you'd like to keep unpacking the layers of modern media together, feel free to subscribe. There's a lot more to uncover, from the algorithms that prioritize sensationalism to the legal battles shaping the future of online speech. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and remember, the truth is often waiting just beyond the first click.